we're talking about this flood of QB deals that happened. Albert's also on his training camp trip, so we're going to get to some of that in a little bit. Of course, one of the rare times where things get done post 5 o'clock on a weekend Friday, very weird NFL news time. I was barbecuing. I was having a good time in the backyard, and then I had to come in and write Tua Tagovailoa, and then I went back out, kept barbecuing, had to come back in and write Jordan Love, but it's all good. And what's interesting to me about both of these, but specifically with Tua, and I want to start there, Albert, because this is a minefield. People get upset about this, but my take on the Tua situation is this. In signing him to that contract, we may never figure out how good Mike McDaniel's offense can be. And Mike McDaniel's offense was so good that it earned Tua Tagovailoa the contract. I think it's like a little snake eating its own tail thing. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, it's going to be hard to separate one from the other now. Look, I mean, my first thought is that I'm happy for the guy. I think I'd be remiss if we didn't say that. And, you can say that about any player, but especially this one. Like after everything that he went through, the hip coming out of Alabama, where that looked like it, if things went a little bit of a different way, could have been a really, really like one of the, we don't see very many career-threatening injuries anymore. Like that could have been a career-threatening injury.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously 2 years ago, the rash of concussions, that again, being a career-threatening situation, you got to be happy for the guy that he made it through all of that. So that's number one. Number two, I wonder where this goes next, because I mean, we're at such a point now where I think we have 8 quarterbacks making over $50 million a year. I mean, think about this. Drew Brees was the first player to break the $20 million barrier, and that was 12 years ago. So this is now escalated 150% in 12 years. That's a huge markup. And yes, quarterbacks are more important. And yes, the NFL is making more money. But these aren't outlier deals anymore. So you have a quarter of the league's starting quarterbacks now making that amount of money. And Aaron Rodgers isn't in that group. And, CJ Stroud isn't in that group. It's just a really interesting dynamic, that we're looking at. Kyler Murray isn't in that group, who got a big contract a few years ago. Josh Allen isn't in that group. I'm not counting Mahomes. He is in that group now because it's a little hard to value his contract, but it's the price of doing business. It's just going to be interesting to see how these contracts mature, because I think both in this case and the case of the guy we're going to talk about next, these really are 3-year deals that the teams can bail from after that. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see where we are with these deals after the 2026 season.
So it's a little bit more, right? It's the Daniel Jones plus, basically. Right. I mean, Daniel Jones was essentially a 2-year deal.
And we've seen how that worked out.
Right. And so what I wonder is, right, you mentioned this sort of group of guys, and there is certainly, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes is going to get a new deal every couple years, commensurate with the market. You would assume that a lot of these guys are going to keep coming up, and taking some bites at the apple. But we have this sort of really interesting part of the league now where you basically have your alien quarterbacks up here, all the guys that you would want: Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, right? Your surefire guys at the top of that axis, right?
Make it there, yeah.
And then you have your quarterbacks on just beginning their rookie deals, right? Guys like Stroud who are in a good spot, and you don't really have to worry about it financially. Then you have just bad teams, right? Like, teams that are just like, like looking around and being like, can we talk Josh McCown out of retirement? Like, we need someone, right? You have those teams. And then you have these other teams who are, you had the Giants who hired a really good coach, got the best out of Daniel Jones, and then was forced to pay him based on possible upside. You had the Dolphins, same thing with Mike McDaniel. And you have these situations now where you're sort of being punished to be a part of this quarterbacking middle class, right? You're not paying that much less than the top of the market in any of these circumstances, and you're not getting nearly as much either.
I had a really interesting conversation with a bunch of people about this. This would have been last offseason, so the 23 offseason. And I talked to guys with the Commanders about their approach, the Falcons about their approach, and the Bucs about their approach. And if you remember, like that offseason, those teams sort of like basically tried to kick the can down the road at quarterback. The Falcons went with Desmond Ridder, the Commanders went with Sam Howell, and the Bucs went and got Baker Mayfield. And it worked out for one of the three, right? But I think conceptually the way those teams were thinking wasn't that off, which was I had one of them tell me, we think this is like max contracts in the NBA. And when there was a spike in the cap in the NBA, there was a point where it was something like 25 or 26 teams in the NBA had at least one guy on a max contract. Now, there weren't 26 players in the NBA worth a max contract, right? And what teams that had players that were B-level players but were paying them at an A level were getting it, the return they were getting wasn't very good. So eventually in the NBA, it matured to the point where teams started to do that a little bit differently. And I can't speak to that quite as much, but it actually created a situation where teams just sort of tried to game it a little bit differently rather than just saying, okay, well, he's our best player, we're giving him a max contract. That dynamic absolutely exists in the NFL, And if you look at the Dolphins, like to prepare for this, what did they do? Well, they let Christian Wilkins walk. They cut Jerome Baker. They cut Xavier Howard. They're going with a lot less on defense now. Now they haven't really cut corners on offense. So they're still going to put Tua Tagovailoa in a position to succeed. But where does that leave their defense? This is a totally different dynamic than they've had over Tua's first 2 years playing under Mike McDaniel. So I just think from that standpoint, it's really interesting because, I do wonder, are the Bucs the smart team here, right? Are where they went and got a reclamation project and then they had to pay that reclamation project not much more than half of what Tua and Jordan Love got.
Right.
Is that the way to go now?
So
what the Seahawks did with Geno Smith, because you're paying half, and that at least buys you time. The same way Alex Smith bought the Chiefs time to go find Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? Is that smarter than like paying a guy that Tua is a really good player, but is he capable of carrying a team? Is he capable of beating some combination of Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud in succession in the AFC playoffs? I don't know. What do you think?
Here's what so Baker Mayfield, if we're going on average salary per year, right? Tua Tagovailoa is at $53.1 million. He is currently, again, in terms of average per year salary, he is the fourth highest paid quarterback in the NFL. He got the extra $100K to leapfrog Jared Goff. Okay. Baker Mayfield is the 21st highest paid player in the NFL. He's making $33.3 million per year, essentially on kind of a pay-as-you-go deal. He's making less than Nick Bosa, Justin Jefferson, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Daniel Jones, Matt Stafford, all that stuff, right? So it's a $20 million difference. Yep. And I hate to phrase it this way, but this is how owners think, okay? For an extra $20 million, you're getting a 5% bump in completion percentage, 600 more passing yards, which boils down to like 1.2 yards per completion, one more touchdown, and 4 more interceptions. So, if you're an owner, and again, this doesn't all boil down to glamour statistics, but there's probably someone in Stephen Ross's office right now laying out those economics to him and saying, this is what you're getting for $20 million. And it doesn't seem like a whole lot more than what they're getting for $33.3 million. Now, there's only so many of these reclamation projects, and one could even reason that Tua Tagovailoa himself is a reclamation project, but he just, they replaced the old regime fast enough, the Brian Flores regime, that Mike McDaniel came in and saved him before the end of the rookie deal, you know? But there are so many players out there. Like, let's see what Sam Darnold does with the Vikings this year. I bet it's pretty good. You know, stuff like that. You know, Geno Smith, you're in Seattle. You know,
I think Geno's a great example. Like, I think Geno's a good quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, he's making what, 25? You have it in front of you, right? I think he's making 25.
Geno was 25. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he's making like less than half of what those 8 players are making.
He makes less than Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Josh Allen. They threw in, now it's Josh Hines Allen.
The Dolphins have 2 receivers who are making more than Geno.
Wow. Yeah. He's making less than Myles Garrett's got to get a new deal again, by the way. I'm just scrolling through here. Myles Garrett, and it's so fun. Like, you know, all these guys are going to have to come up again, and they are going to get paid.
That's another sneaky storyline training camp, is all these guys asking for contract adjustments with multiple years left on their deals.
They should. I mean, Myles Garrett,
Trent Williams, Matthew Stafford, Max Crosby. There's a lot of these guys that are getting adjustments, and that's what they should be doing.
Good.
Their value. Anyway, that's off track, but
make it worth my while.